So, Sniper Elite 5 is released today, and I'm really excited and expect to put in some serious gaming time over the weekend. But if you're like me and find that your PlayStation controller requires recharging much more often than it used to, it's probably due for a new battery. So today I'm going to show you a quick and easy way for about $10 to upgrade that battery to give you even more extended playing time between charges than you had when the controller was brand new. So let's get started. Now, before you even order a battery, verify what version of the PlayStation 4 controller you've got. Sony actually released two versions of this under a few different model numbers. If you look right here on the back, you should be able to see your model number. Notice this is a 1U. That means this is the first version of the controller, as opposed to my other controller, when we take a look at that, is a 2U. So this is the second version of the controller. Now the battery is basically the same except for the connector on the end. It's a different size for version 2 versus version 1. So just verify that the battery that you're ordering is compatible. Again, this is the 1U. Make sure it's the right battery for the right version of controller that you own. Now, this process is really quite simple, and I think I paid 16 bucks for two of these batteries, and it comes with all the tools, but really all you need is a small precision screwdriver and maybe a little spudger of some sort. So we're going to start out by removing these 4 screws on the back side of the controller, and you do want to be a little bit careful here because these are pretty delicate screws and it would be pretty easy to strip the heads on them. Okay, with the screws removed, the next part is we need to separate these two halves from each other. And I've found that by kind of squeezing one of these bottom pieces here, you can start to get a little bit of it to pop apart there. I don't know how well you can see that, but this is where the spudger is going to come in handy. We're going to get that squeezed apart a little bit, just enough to try to get this tool in an opening. Once we get that in there, we can just gently work that around. You do want to be careful not to break off any of the pieces. These are really just snapped together. If you just gently work your way around, there we go, it's snapping loose. Come over and work the other side. So now you should be able to very carefully raise this top piece off. And you don't want to pull it apart because there's going to be a ribbon cable there, so you do want to be a little bit gentle when you take these two halves apart. Okay, here again you can see that ribbon cable. Now you can either disconnect the ribbon cable or very carefully set it aside. We're going to spin this around. I'm actually going to leave that ribbon cable connected, but it is very delicate, so we want to be extremely careful not to damage this cable. So obviously here is our battery that we're going to be replacing, and here is the battery connector. Now this will only fit one way, but just to be on the safe side, I like to note which wire. So the red wire is going to be on the top, so I can make sure I connect this one in the same way. So all we need to do is grab the sides of this little connector. It can be a little stiff. We're just going to wiggle that until it pops loose. There we go. And we're going to take the old battery off. Do note that I've got a little spring right here. That spring is actually part of this button. It fell off when we took the two halves apart. So I'm just going to take that out and set that aside for a moment. We'll put that spring back in place when we go to put the two halves back together. And putting in the new battery is just as simple. We're going to pop that into place. There was a little clip there to help hold this wire, so we'll run it through there. I remember we said our red was going to be on top, so we'll put that battery in there and same way plug the new cable back in. Again, this should only fit one way, so you shouldn't be able to reverse it, but again, it's always nice to know that you've got the right wire on the right side. Make sure you push that in until you feel it click. Okay, I did go ahead and replace that missing spring. It was just part of this button right here. I did temporarily disconnect this ribbon cable to do that. So if you do disconnect that ribbon cable, you just simply gently plug it back in. In the case of this version, your metal strip should be facing the battery. Definitely don't force it, but make sure it's seated fully in there. Okay, so that's in place. So now all we've got to do is carefully snap these two halves back together. Make sure no other pieces pop out. So start by getting these buttons at the top back in place, because there is this little lip that has to go between the top and bottom shoulder buttons. By the way, I did inadvertently hit the power button, so we can see our new battery is already working. There we go. So now everything is snapped back together. So again, all we have to do at this point is put our 4 screws back in the back. And there you have it. The battery that came out was a 1000 milliamp hour. We put in an 1800 milliamp hour. So we ought to get somewhere almost close to double the amount of time, at least 1.5 amount of time between charges with our new controller. So that's it. Now it's time to give the batteries a quick charge and get ready to play some Sniper Elite 5. As always, I'd like to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.